Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 194.
Yeah.
A social media episode.
Yeah. And did you know that I'm not very social media savvy?
Okay, well, neither was I until Pure Hustle Podcast.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even just so much that like interest isn't necessarily there. The more I've done Pure Hustle Podcast, I've seen the value of it for business. Personal life, I kind of took a break from social media. But one of the reasons I kind of started this podcast, I mean, we talked about the value of making money and all of that and being able to help other people and me learning how to resell. But it was kind of almost a social experiment because I'm seeing all of these students, all these kids that at school talk about wanting to be YouTubers and social media people. And I'm kind of like,
the latest study was, I think there was a study, maybe it's, you know how Facebook stuff goes around, was like students in China, they want to be astronauts. Students in America want to be YouTubers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, I heard so many people, and I was getting from parents like, please help my kid realize that they need to get a real job. And I'm kind of seeing, things that like I'd occasionally, watch some e-games. I'm like, these guys are making a lot of money.
Well, I know. I don't know if that's the case anymore.
No, yeah. And then I'd see like some people on Twitch, and I don't even remember what it was. Oh, it was when Fortnite first came out. And I just was like, I wonder what this game is. And so on YouTube, while it was downloading on my Xbox, I click on like a random Twitch stream because it had it as an option on like the screen. And as I'm watching this guy play Fortnite, he was just getting donation after donation. I'm like, this is like a legitimate thing. Like people can make money on this. So one of the reasons I wanted to do the podcast, like I want to see how doing a podcast would be like, can we get it out there? Can we actually reach people and help people? Is this something that my students, should I be telling my students, go get a real job? Or should I be saying, hey, the world is changing and I need to kind of figure it out? And I've been pleasantly surprised at the fact that there is a dark side to social media. I'm sure we'll talk about some of that today. But social media can be very, very valuable. And it really is changing the landscape of the world. And you oftentimes hear people say, and I agree, they kind of lament the fact that, before social media, things were better and social media is causing anxiety and all these things. And can't we just do things the old way? But the reality is we can't. We can't go back because the world has changed. And so I think it's a good idea that we talk about social media and how, we can't change the world back to what it was before. So how do we adapt and how do we utilize the tools we have in our business, whether it's reselling or in our day-to-day life?
Yeah. And so the title, in case you're lost and you're like, hey, what podcast am I listening to? The title is, I try to go clickbaitish here as Mike has requested in the past. So this one is titled Using Social Media to Maximize Profits. Yeah. Does that work?
That works.
Will that get us the clicks?
And just so you guys know, like Orlando and I, we preface a lot of our episodes with, we're not experts at basically anything. Like we're really good at some things. And Orlando's gotten really good at social media on Instagram, but neither of us would say like, hey, we've arrived at social media. So we're talking from experience as far as that. But I think we've gotten a lot of experience in social media and seen how other people have had success. So
a lot of this is going to be what other people are doing too.
So hopefully we can bring some value, and maybe you're kind of, in the camp that I've been in, and have kind of said like, I don't want to make that leap. I kind of just want to keep doing business as usual. But you'll see, there are some good sides to social media that can maximize that profit for you.
Yeah. And so the first thing, I wanted to break this up into three parts. The first is the people on the platforms, right? Because I believe every platform runs different, and the way you run your reselling business with that platform runs different. And then the good and the bad, because there's bad. I think I don't know. It's tough. It really is tough. I think there's more good than bad, and I'll talk about that. And then we got our hustles of the week that we'll talk about here. And then I want to end with the potential, because I think there's a lot of potential that even a year ago wasn't available, and COVID brought a lot of that potential to us. That there were already people doing some of these things, and now I think there's an opportunity for more of us as resellers to use social media to actually make tangible money with reselling, not just make money off of CPMs or sponsorships or any of that. By the way, speaking of sponsorships, real quick, if you haven't had a chance, thank you to all of you that have signed up to be members of Pure Hustle Podcast. And again, it's buymeacoffee.com/Pure Hustle. And you could sign up to $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And Dunkin's rising lately. Dunkin', it's not Dunkin' Donuts anymore. It's just Dunkin'. Dunkin'.
Very trendy.
But anyway, so $5 a month or a one-time donation. Really appreciate all the help there as we're working through sponsors too at the same time. And hey, we just want to be able to bring our message to more people to help them level up their standard of living.
Yeah.
All right. So we're on multiple platforms. right? And the one we're on mostly is Instagram, and I think that's because it's the one where you catch the most traction, is the one that you like to be on, right? Because you get more engagement and so on. But before I talk about that, there's always different camps of resellers. Now, have you observed, like, you came in from the outside, like super outside 2 years ago. Now, when I talk about social media, I'm not talking about just Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all those. YouTube's kind of considered social media, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So before you went into reselling, like when we started the podcast, what were your thoughts about, like, what kind of reselling people would you find on social media?
Yeah, I mean, there's the social media aspect, and then there's just like resellers in general, right? Like there's in any group that you're involved in, there's going to be subgroups, right? And so, yeah, from the outside, I see the people who are kind of just doing the day-to-day grind and they're reselling, and maybe that's their full-time job, and they don't make a big, show about it. They don't really want to talk about it that much. And then you get the people who are helping those people, right? That, when I first got into reselling, one of the first things I did is go onto YouTube, and I quickly found that there was different types of videos. There was the very highly produced videos. There were the YouTubers who were putting on, like, it was like, wow, this is really nice. Like, it's like a travel video and there's cool transitions and all of this stuff. And then there was just the videos of the people at a garage sale, and they're just talking about something that they're seeing. Then there was like the undercover stuff. And then you get the ads on those videos of like, whoa, these people are like selling the dream. And, all you got to do is pay $10,000 and get on their course. So it was very clear that there were different camps of resellers.
Yeah. And so that's what I want to talk about, is that, every platform, like Facebook, there's major groups, right? I think the groups are great. I personally haven't joined the group just because I don't have the time, and I would feel kind of guilty just being in a group and never contributing to the group. Some of the groups want you to contribute, right? To be part of that group. So I recommend Facebook groups. I've only heard good things. I myself just don't, it's just one avenue. Like, we run Facebook, but those of you that follow us on Facebook, we're not the best on Facebook. Like, I don't even think we have our Facebook business page set up right. No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But we roll with it, right? We just want people to give that avenue if they want to follow us. But I think that's a great way to maximize profits, because on some of these groups, it's kind of like Reddit. Reddit's kind of social media, right? Does that count, Reddit?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Reddit is a great tool, such a great tool. I think people, like, you overlook it. If you go to Reddit and you go to the flipping, what do you call those, subcategories or pages, or what are they called on Reddit? Subreddits, right? If you so stupid. I did not know that. If you go to the flipping subreddit, it is awesome. And the reason I say this is because, sometimes you got those questions, right? And, you're like, hey, who do I contact? Do I contact this person on social media? Well, this person has 50,000 followers. I'm not sure they're going to get back to me, right? And they should get back to you. I mean, I always try to get back to everybody, even though we're at like 21K, it's getting more difficult. Like, I think it's rude. Like, I understand we all have time, but hey, everybody needs an answer, right? Now, sometimes it takes longer than others, but if you go to the flipping subreddit, buy low, sell high, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on there. There's daily newbie threads. So if you're a new person, you can talk about stuff. There's a section with weekly hauls. People throw random questions on there and they get people that answer. Now, there is a little bit of kind of sometimes, that people go down the rabbit hole of negativity, but that's on any platform.
Yeah, Reddit's a brutal place, just in general for the most part. I mean, every platform, we're going to talk about platforms, and it seems like Orlando's already kind of got us into there. Every platform has its own feeling, right? So there's different groups of resellers, right? We talked about, you got kind of like the guru people and the people who are, maybe just doing it as a side hustle. But then the platforms have their own feeling too. And Reddit can be a very, very harsh place. They do have those newbie threads. So I always suggest, using that first, or learning to use a search function, because if you're asking questions people have asked a million times, you're going to, and I'm not necessarily saying on the flipping thread, but just in general, whether it's fitness or whatever hobby you're into, it can be a brutal place. But one of the beautiful things about Reddit is the voting system. The way it works is if a question is good, a comment is good, a response is good, it gets upvoted. And so you might see a question where somebody says, like, what's the best way to do this? Well, the number one response that's going to come up isn't going to be the first person that replied, right? Like a lot of times forums, it's just somebody replies first, but you might have to read through 30 pages so you get to the best answer. Well, Reddit works by people are going to upvote, like, this is the best answer. So even people who aren't contributing by answering are going to say, here's the best answer, and it's going to work its way up to the top. Or a trending hustle or trending bolo might work its way up to the top. So you don't have to sift through as much and filter through as much, I don't want to say garbage, but the stuff that's not as valuable. And so Reddit kind of takes care of that for you. And so, yeah, it's definitely a good place to be, but be prepared. I would say lurk for a little while in Reddit just to kind of get a feel for a community, because every single thread is going to be different, every subreddit, and get a feel for the community and who's, contributing a lot and who's valuable. But you can always learn a ton just by looking at the stuff that's been upvoted the most.
Yeah, and I'm on there a lot. I'm on there probably every other day. We don't have our own kind of, I guess, our own page or whatever. I'll comment every once in a while. But people ask questions and you'll get answers. Like, it's really, like, I'm looking at one right now. One of the most recent ones was, what's the best tape to buy in bulk? And this was posted 19 hours ago, and there's 12 comments on it, right? And the top comment moved up to the top, and there's a lot of great tips, right? And people sometimes will ask questions that aren't the best, or sometimes they're like, sometimes you have situations like Instagram where people are just flexing and, showing how well they did. But I think it's an incredible tool. Like, I go on there a lot and I find a lot of things, because let's go to Instagram. So Instagram is great if you're following the right people, right? Because Instagram is very much of a place to flex. And so you'll see a lot of, people will just say, hey, I sold this for this much, but there's no backstory. There's no, hey, I found it for this much, I actually lost this much money. Or sometimes people will throw their numbers up there, right? Their Amazon numbers, their eBay 90-day totals, but you don't know the whole story, right? So, and we'll talk about that, but it's different. Now, it's a great place, I think, to network, because there's more that goes in the background in the DMs, at least for us. It's been really helpful in the DMs on Instagram, because, people will say, hey, I got this hustle a week, or check out this, or they'll send us a lead. And I'll talk about that later on. But Instagram, I think, is a really good place if you're just trying to get a general feel for what people are thinking in the reselling community as far as the latest trends. Right. And we'll talk about it a little bit. We talk about Facebook groups. Now,
speaking of Facebook groups, I just want to say, like, one of the benefits, again, I'm not in a reselling Facebook group, which maybe I need to. Maybe we need to be more serious.
I always feel like we've been invited so many times, but I haven't done it yet.
I just haven't been in any Facebook groups really at all. But my wife just joined a few days ago a RV living Facebook group, and already she sent me like multiple messages like, hey, we need to do this to the trailer. Oh, we had a problem that we just thought like, oh, we're trying to figure it out. And next thing you know, she's like, hey, people were talking about this in the group today. And it's amazing how much she's learned about kind of the off-grid RV living just from this Facebook group. And so, yeah, Facebook groups are great. Reddit's a good option for like getting those questions answered. Instagram, like you said, there's some flex there, but it's good. What's the next one?
So I wanted to talk about TikTok. So TikTok's an up and coming one. That's the one where you really got to be careful. I mean, here's the thing, and we'll talk about
it's a deep black abyss of a rabbit hole that you can go down in TikTok.
Well, no, you can't, because the algorithm is strong with that one.
Yes, it is.
It's really strong. Like, for example, like it depends. Like, let's say you're voting for, President Trump, or you're voting for, Senator Joe Biden. Like, depending on which one you're at, like, you watch one and you watch another one, and that's all you're going to get. Right. And you're going to walk away. You're going to watch this for, I don't know, 2-3 hours. And then, because TikTok really, you can't see the time.
Yeah.
Right. And it's only short clips, and it hits dopamine, man. It gets at you.
It's very addicting. And like you said, the algorithm is really good. And so you got to be very careful to follow the things that you want to follow, because you can quickly get into funny trends and funny things that will just time waste. But yeah, I've learned a lot of shipping techniques and like things to do with boxes and way to take pictures and things like that off of TikTok. And the great thing is a lot of times they're like 15-second videos, sometimes 30-second videos. And the great thing is Instagram, I hate the way they do videos. Like, you can't rewatch it, rewind it. Like, you just have to let it play all the way through. So like, if you want to show somebody something, like, hold on, wait just a second. It's going to restart in a second. Hold on. And then by the time it restarts, they've lost interest. But with TikTok, you can just restart the video, just go back up and down, and then it's restarted. You can pause it. And so it's a great way to learn little techniques, but you kind of have to let the algorithm know that you want to see reselling videos. Otherwise, you're not going to get them.
But the algorithm is crazy. Like, and we have our account. And so, when we started in the beginning, there was only like a handful of us. And Mike and I started way back, but then we kind of took a break. We're like, I don't know how much. And then we got back on it. And so now there's a growing community. But what's happened, it's like every new platform, like the gurus show up at the one that they can maximize the most, right? So kind of all the gurus have been kind of called out on YouTube. Right? People know the gurus. They still show up every once in a while, right? On Facebook, I don't know how many gurus are on Facebook, right? I don't see them. The feed doesn't do that much. On Instagram, you still have gurus every once in a while, but on TikTok, it is guru heavy. It is drop ship. It is, I can make you, make $10,000 a month, no problem. Like, so yeah, you got to be careful on what you're swiping up. Is it swiping up? Yeah, you're swiping up on TikTok, right? Because based on what you're watching, you can end up thinking it's not a good resource. So you got to search out those.
Well, there's not a way to like downvote a video that you don't want to see, right?
No.
Just don't like them, right? And like the ones, like if you see one, like I said, like.
Well, if you hit the home, it'll refresh it again.
But if you're just filtering through and let's say you see one that you really like, right? Like you see one about like how to cut a box a certain way, make sure to heart it because doing that, like even just viewing will trigger the algorithm.
Yeah, it tracks how long you view a video.
Yeah, put it on repeat let it go through like 10 times and it will, you'll get more videos like that. So yeah, so avoid the scammers, avoid the people. I mean, I saw one I was just flipping through earlier today and I saw one that's like, I own 500 houses and 30 apartment complexes and I bought them all without spending my own money. And he's like pointing to all the things I could teach you how to do this. And I'm like, really? Like, come on now.
Well, and the thing I've also seen, and it's across everything, right? You have, and we'll talk about this when we get to the bad, but people have their own agendas, right? Why do people start social media, right? Not everybody's altruistic. Some are altruistic and then they see that there's other opportunities and they're like, maybe I'm going to capitalize on this instead. Some start off as resellers and then their social media platform takes off and they're like, well, I'm better off doing social media. And I that's fine. I mean, Mike and I have said, if we ever get picked up for a show or to be on a radio network or whatever, we get major sponsorships, we may do less reselling. I'm good with that, right? You're good with that.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Look, man, I'm trying to put food on the table and clothes on my family's back. That's why we side hustle, right? Like there's no shame in how you make your money. Well, there can be, but you know.
So be aware of the algorithm. And with YouTube, it's just like that too, right? YouTube's algorithm is pretty strong. Like it'll feed you. But by the way, have you caught The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
I haven't.
I was thinking we should do a reaction video, but it's not reselling related. I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Should we? So it's kind of scary the way they play out how they brought out all these former like execs from Facebook and Twitter and all, and they talk about the algorithm and how it functions and how the algorithm, right? It's about monetization, right? It's you watching. So they track how long you watch something. They track at what time of day. They can actually figure out your mood based on what images you're looking at and all that craziness. And they have this like simulation where they have like 3 guys and they're supposed to be the algorithm. And they're like, you know what? He didn't really like reading the news here. Maybe we should like now update him about his ex-girlfriend posting a picture of being with her boyfriend. And I'm like, it's crazy because sometimes you've seen it. I'm sure all of you that follow us on Instagram or TikTok, Facebook, you've seen it where you'll get a notification and you already like reply to that comment. And you're like, why am I getting this now? Right? It's kind of like, eBay's latest glitch where have you been getting this glitch where I sell something and then after the offer comes in,
yeah.
I'm like, well, what is going on? But that's a glitch. On social media, it's not by accident. So be aware that we can go on and on and on. But here's the thing. Let's talk about the good and the bad. Okay. I want to talk about the bad first. Let's end the well.
Yeah. Let's start with the bad news.
Okay. So the bad news is there's a lot of comparison. We've talked about this so many times. We had a whole episode called Staying in Your Lane. But you don't feel that much because, right? I mean, I don't know. I think you get callous to it. You still feel it sometimes, right?
Yeah. What I really just think too, because like we talk about it for reselling and it applies. One of the reasons why so many people push back against social media is the impact it just has on our culture. Everyone's sharing the best of their life and it's an unrealistic expectations. And Joe Rogan recently showed in one of his YouTubes or during his podcast, he showed, I think he was interviewing Ben Shapiro and he showed a picture of his daughter, Joe Rogan's. Joe Rogan's daughter, I guess,
I remember this.
She's young. I don't remember the exact age, like 7, 9, something like that. And he shows it to the person he's interviewing and he goes, how old do you think this girl is? And I think it was Ben Shapiro's like, she's, I don't know, probably early 20s, 19, something like that. And he's like, this is like my 9-year-old daughter. And it was like a filter that like made her look like an adult. And so Joe Rogan used the filter on himself and it made Joe Rogan look like a beautiful woman, right? And it just goes to show like people will use filters, they'll look fake. And that comparison game works in a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways people show the best sides of themselves or maybe embellish. And that goes with reselling, right? People will embellish, they'll show gross numbers and not net. They'll show, a lot of things that might not give the full picture. And it does create a lot of sometimes anxiety. For some people, that's the motivation they need, right? Like I see other people getting it, I'm going to get after it too. But a lot of times it's unrealistic expectations. And it causes you to almost become depressed about yourself. And instead of looking and saying, hey, I'm staying in my lane. I'm good at what I do. I'm going to take the good things, the things I can learn from other people, but I'm not going to try and be this other person because they're not even that person, right? And you got to realize that. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of, why don't I look like this person? Why don't I have the success that this person has? And, social media can do that to you. And you have to be disciplined enough to recognize, hey, this isn't always reality.
Now, one of the best comments that was posted in the last few weeks was from a young, I think he's 18. He just graduated from high school. He's been following us since the podcast began. He started doing like recycling. He was like making some YouTubes of recycling, and then he went to FBA, and now he's doing like some media from the bins and so on. And he's been just growing his business. Victor or Vic, he goes by Victremel, VICTRMEL on Instagram. He commented on one of our posts, and I thought it was so wise for somebody so young, which I think it was just wise. I mean, I would have never thought of putting it in words like this, but I thought it was so good because I think this happens to many of us as resellers at one point where we see somebody and we're like, you know what, we probably could do what they're doing. We just got to figure it out, and we can do it. And it's the same thing with, with social media too. How many times do you see people that start reselling YouTubes because they're resellers, but they're like, hey, they see how lucrative it could be to make a YouTube channel, right? And it seems like it's passive income and you could do really well, but it's a grind. I mean, we're on episode 194, right? Now, we're a podcast, so obviously the traction we get on YouTube is a little bit different than the traction we're getting on the podcast side, which is we keep growing, like it has not stopped growing. But it's the same principle with reselling. Like you may see somebody, you're like, I could definitely do that. I just got to figure it out. And this is what he commented. I thought this was great. So VICTRMEL on Instagram Vic said, I feel like when someone is killing it in shoes, for instance, they feel like they can kill it in everything else. And they get too much food on their plate and lose out on a ton of money. I'm like, that is so wise, right? That's why that episode, Staying in Your Lane, came out of that comment, because I thought about that and I said, how many times do you see people like right now, Pokemon is huge. And I know I'm losing thousands, but I don't know if I'm losing thousands.
Yeah, I don't know if you are either.
But the reason I say this is not because there isn't money to be made. It's because I think about how much time I would have to spend to educate myself to really make it happen.
Yeah. And then for a trend that might pop, or is it just inflated numbers right now anyways? Because I was telling my wife about what we just talked about with the Pokemon and, the guy buying the $200,000 box and then selling the boosters and all of this stuff. And it's like, but who's really buying those cards? Like, who's paying $200,000 for a holographic Charizard? Are people listing them for that much? But are they actually really going to people? And maybe a few of them are, but that doesn't mean that everybody all of a sudden starts pulling them out, that they're all going to go for that, right? They go for that because there's scarcity. But if all of a sudden they're coming out of the woodworks, those prices drop, right? And so if you spend a lot of time and money and investment, and then all of a sudden the bubble drops, this isn't like you're buying 10 items from Target and then there's a race to the bottom. It's very different when you're spending, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on a gamble. Now, if you're already in that field, if you're already a collectible card trader and you're able to capitalize on it, great. If you don't know what to do and you're able to capitalize on it and you're not already being successful in another area, but yeah, trying to jump on and imitate other people. Don't imitate other people to be like them. Be the best version of you can be, right? And so maybe that's doing some of the things they're doing, but I don't know. I'd be leery about doing Pokemon right now. And I spent a good part of my childhood doing Pokemon. It would take me a lot less to be educated on it. And I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. Well, I do think they're going to legit people. Like it is so like, it's crazy. Even stuff that's dropping right now, like prices have doubled in like the last few weeks. It is obnoxious. But what I'll say is it's right. You might have too much on your plate because, hey, you're like, hey, I can do Pokemon. I can do FBA. I can be part of a cook group. I can do vintage. I can do Depop, I can do Etsy, I can make crafts, I can do this. And then before you know it, right, you've picked up all this from social media and like, I can make this happen. And you're just mediocre across the board. Right. And so I'm always a big believer in cross post as much as you can, because I think there's value to cross posting. But I'm also a believer in, hey, if you can go on 2 platforms and maximize these 2 platforms, it's a pretty good place to be. Right. And, again, people say don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket, but I'm saying go to the hens that are most productive. I don't know. That makes sense?
Yeah, it's good. I like that.
All right. Okay. Also, understand that on social media, there's different agendas. All right. I can tell you, Mike and I, seriously, we're resellers. Like, I hope you catch. This is why I post. I've said this. This is why I post stories on Instagram every day. This is why today I posted a story where I went to a thrift and I walked out with nothing. And I documented that. Did I hate documenting that? Sure, I did, because I felt like I was wasting everybody's time. But at the same time, I wanted to be real about it, because I would hate it that all I'm doing is showing a highlight reel all the time. Right? Because if that's what I'm doing, you give a lot of people false sense of hope. And I don't want to do that. Mike and I have always been clear that this is hard work. Now, there are some people that figure things out really well and they're able to scale. I know myself, I don't think I'm that person. I think I'm the kind of person that I work hard, and hopefully, I somehow land on something, or I figure out something really well and it becomes something I can be profitable on, which I've already had some of those scenarios happen, right? But you also got to be aware that a lot of these highlight reels have an agenda, right? And we all know this, right? They're trying to sell you a course. They're trying to sell you a mastermind. They're trying to get you on a Patreon. They're trying to sell you a coffee. I'm just joking. No, they're not trying to sell you a coffee, right? But there's an end game, right? There's an end game, right? And so they may have started as a reseller and now they're not relevant anymore. Right. And, not trying to throw shade or anything, but I've heard concepts out there that we've even shared here that has been unique to Pierce Podcast. And I'm like, they must listen to our podcast. Right now, I know a lot of stuff in reselling is the same old. Like, right. I mean, we can talk about all different kinds of stuff. We'll end up saying the same things, but sometimes some things are pretty unique. And you're like, okay, this person is using this information to propel their social media or propel their channel. And I'm all good with that. It is. Our content is free. We're out there to help people, but be aware, because there are people out there looking to take advantage, and it takes some time, right? YouTube is filled with that. TikTok's filled with that. Facebook is filled with that. Instagram is filled with that. Now, this other one about sharing too much, you want to just go over that real quick, because we talk about this. I think we talk about this a lot.
Yeah, we do talk about it a lot. But yeah, just be careful. Be careful with sharing what you share and who you share it with, because there's a big difference between sharing a bolo or a hustle of something that's a unique find and a one-off, and destroying the market on something you might have done a lot of research and found a hot toy or a hot item at a store, and then you share it, and next thing you know, there's 100 people on that listing and there's no more money there.
Yeah, and there's the opposite way that can help you, right? You keep your eye on. 100%. I'm so grateful we're on Instagram, because 3 or 4 years ago I've been doing Amazon for about 10 years now, but when I was really doing FBA, when I really started caring about it, 3, 4, 5, I would lose track of time. Let's say 5 years ago, I'd buy items and I'm like, sweet, I'd make a ton of money. And then out of nowhere, it would just tank. And not because Amazon got on the listing, because like 30 or 40 people showed up. I'm like, where did these people come from? Well, now I know. It's either from a Bellow group. It's either from somebody on social media shares it. It came from somewhere. So I can use it to my advantage. Whenever somebody shows stuff on social media, sometimes I'll move on that product. Like I remember one time I was watching somebody and they're like, yeah, I'm outside the store and they're doing their final clearance today. And so, I'm just waiting for them to open. And they dropped this at like 8:30. I think the store opened at 9. I just got in my car and I took off and I went to the store. And sure enough, I capitalized on that and I spent my entire day hitting every single store in San Diego and the outskirts of San Diego, and I killed it, right? But maybe that individual lost out because they may have gone to the stores I went to because they were local and they missed out on stuff, right? But there's also been times when I've seen something on social media. So, for example, did I share about the Captain America shield thing ever? So last year at Ross, there was like this Captain America shield, whatever thing, and it was, you can buy it for like $7 and they were going for about $35 on Amazon. Low ranking, like flying. And so this was like 2 or 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. And I remember I was selling so many of these. And then I saw a post where there's 2 cart full of these, and they're like, yeah, I killed it today at Ross. And I'm like, it is time to liquidate. So the moment I saw that post, I went, I put my pricing like, on my repricer to beat every single buddy. I didn't care. Like, it was, I'm going to sell out before things get crazy. And sure enough, I sold all the way through, and within a week it tanked. Right. So that's why I think you should be on social media. If anything, if you're just be a lurker, you don't even have to engage. I think there's a lot of positive things you can do. And that's the next part here with social media. But if you want to be just a lurker, that's great, because you can learn on YouTube and on Instagram, on TikTok, about what are some bolos, what are some retail finds. Like on TikTok right now, there are so many younger individuals that I guess they're just clout chasing for a reason. They're showing all the hot items that they're picking up retail. And I don't think they understand that there's a bunch of people seeing this, including Orlando, that goes, I don't know about that. It's time for me to go buy some stuff. And I've made a killing, and I've gotten out before it got really bad. So there's good and bad to TikTok.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the really good is the networking.
Yes.
Right. I mean, on all ends.
Yeah. No, networking is good. I remember when I was going through my master's program to get, it's in education technology. And they had this whole thing that was your personal learning network. And educators are really big on Twitter. We didn't really touch Twitter too much for reselling, but educators are really big on being on Twitter. And at first I was kind of like, this is so silly. I don't have a Twitter. I'm not going to learn anything. And within a few weeks of being in this program, and one of the very first assignments, they kind of forced us to like follow 30 educators on Twitter, and then do 3 posts each week and comment on 10 posts. And before long, I'm like, holy cow, like this person right here provides like gold information of like tips that I can use when I'm grading, or tips for presenting a lesson, or what to do on Google Slides. And I learned so much. And the same is true for reselling, right? You can build up that network where you're following the right people, you connect with people. And before long, if you're contributing, you're part of that, you're messaging with people will find something and they'll let you know, right? Like, hey, I know that, like Orlando's talked about in the past, like, hey, I know you do Harley stuff. I don't really do Harley stuff. You should check out this garage sale I just left, right? Because you built this community, this network of people working together. I have no interest in electronics anymore or certain video game stuff because it's not my lane. But I know a few resellers that are local that I've met through Instagram. And if I find good deals like that, I might shoot them a message like, hey, I was just at this place. I'm not planning on picking any of this stuff up, but you should get over here. So having that network is good, not only because it builds a community of people that you can ask those questions. Because you can ask a question on Reddit, but you never know what kind of answers you're going to get. But if you've got like 10 people in a close group, or maybe 30 people that you message regularly on Instagram or Facebook, those are going to be the people who are going to give you the best information. You can trust them, and having that network is great.
No, I agree. I can't tell you how many. I'm just thinking about 2 days ago, having a conversation with, I consider probably one of the best sellers of Nike products or athletic wear. And, we'll have conversations. I mean, I literally just call them up now. It's weird because I used to think I don't know. It sounds kind of weird, but I used to think they were like reselling celebrities. I couldn't ever like be in contact with these people. And once we did the podcast, we recognized that the reselling world is really small, and that it's majority of the people are really humble. Like, they're willing to talk to you. There's some people that are, whatever, but for the most part, everybody's pretty cool. And, whenever I have a Nike product that I don't know what it is or what are their thoughts on this. Now, I don't waste people's time, right? That's the other thing you got to be careful of. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I can go to this person and go, hey, listen, I'm throwing some thoughts out there. What are your thoughts on this? I remember when the card market was scaling, and I remember approaching somebody that we've had before on the show, and I said, hey, what do you think about this card? Should I purchase it? Do you think this is a bad buy? And I was able to get advice that was very helpful. And so whatever it is, right? I mean, the networking is great. I mean, it's even great on a personal level. I'll mention this individual later on when I talk about our hustle of the week, but sometimes my son, who's an avid gamer, wants some video games. He's the plug. Like, he's the guy I contact first. I'm like, hey, you have anything? And I'm not looking for a deal. I just know that he has stuff that I can't get anywhere else, or he at least can direct me where to go, right? Shipping, right? Shipping supplies. If you're looking for product, there's ways to get, there's now the big thing in the reselling community, and we'll talk about this later on too, is that if you're looking for product, there's a lot of influencers now that are reselling wholesale boxes. Now, that might stir some controversy in the comments, right? Because I don't consider myself old school reseller, but I'm like the reseller after the old school OGs, like midway between there, because
you're in your midlife reselling.
I don't know where I'm at, but there's
you're
like
having a midlife resale crisis.
Well, there's different groups, and I got respect for all of them, right? But there are some that are like, yeah, if you're reselling those boxes, like you're not a real reseller, right? Or if you're selling stuff because of your YouTube channel, you're not a reseller. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And we'll share that in a little bit, but that's when we get to the potential. But it's time for our next segment now before we move on to that. Are you ready? This is good.
I am ready. But before we do that, we should tell you about our social media.
I think we should flip the script one time and have Mike do this. So
nope.
I'm going to do it right now though. So hey, if you haven't had a chance, we're talking about social media, so why not follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok? We are Pure Hustle Cast. We are also on Twitter as Pure Hustle Cast. Wait.
We're Pure Hustle Podcast on everything but Twitter.
How do I fail in the social media episode of all the episodes?
We just want to stay humble and show you we're not perfect, man. We're not like experts at social media. Right. We can't even give ours properly. But yeah, so we're Pure Hustle Podcast on all major social media sites. You can find us on Twitter. We're Pure Hustle Cast. And we really appreciate all of your support. We thank you guys for sending us emails, sending us DMs. We always try and get back to you whenever you send us something. Orlando's great at responding to stuff. We always comment back on YouTube. And so we love you reaching out to us. You can also give us a phone call. Orlando will give the phone number right now.
619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170.
Yeah, so give us a call. That'd be great. And again, thank you for everybody who's done the Buy Me a Coffee. It really is helpful. I mean, there's times where Orlando and I can be a little bit discouraged of like, this is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to do. And when we get, donations from you, it really is helpful to say, what we're doing is valuable. People find value in what we're creating. And so we appreciate that. And one of the ways you can do that, if you're saying, hey, maybe I'm just starting out, I'm a hustler, I'm trying to pay my bills, I'm trying to do the Dave Ramsey thing, I can't do the Buy Me a Coffee right now, that's perfectly fine. Go on over to iTunes, leave us a review. Those reviews help us out so much. We're talking about algorithms. And with iTunes, it's not really social media, but they do promote the people who have the most interaction. So if you leave us some feedback, give us those stars. And the comments are great. We read all of them. And again, those comments are so encouraging to us. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that.
Thank you. And last of all, if you're not watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell notification.
Bing.
Mike, that was great, Mike. Maybe you should just take over.
Maybe. All right. Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah. It's the hustle of the week. And we're going to start off with Jordan, IG handle at Upstate Picker. So
this is a three-peat. This is the third time being hustle of the week.
Oh man, Jordan is killing it. So picked up via a local deal a 12 Newman box slot cars for $350. Sold one pretty quickly for $325. So basically made your money back on one of them. Sold another one for $269 and still have 10 left. That's great. I mean, if just think 10 left and you made $325 on one, $269 on another. Even if you were just to say $200 more on each of those, $2,000 in net profit.
I know.
Fantastic.
That's why I made it hustle of the week. And it's new unboxed slot cars. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about slot cars lately. I don't think I've seen a slot car in 2 years. Have you seen a slot car?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Well, anyways, look it up. But great. Oh man, when I saw that, it reminded me of the good old railroad days, not like the 1800s, but when I've sourced major like railroad things, that can happen. So keep an eye, slot cars, railroads, and so on. Thank you so much, Jordan. That I think there's going to be like a 1 year moratorium until we can have another. Is that the right word?
Yeah. So we're gonna put you on hold. We're gonna put you in the batter's box for a little while. You gotta cool down or a penalty box, but like in a good way. So you're going on timeout so we can give other people the chance to hustle it up.
Jordan, thank you. Upstate Picker on Instagram for your legit flips. All right. Hey, next we have John, IG handle VIX, VIXX _vintage. picked up 4 vintage shirts / sweatshirts for $4 at a garage sale. Okay, so this was a 90s puffy print Nike Air Jordan crew neck size large. I don't know why I told you the size. A 1992 Dream Team Olympic tee, a 1992 Chicago Bulls back-to-back champion shirt, and a 1993 Chicago Bulls gray 3-peat shirt. All 4 sold for $260 on Mercari.
Nice.
I mean, to me, I'm blown away for a couple of reasons. It's because these are shirts that like I wore in the 90s, like when I was a kid.
Yep.
I mean, this is so wild. I'll share this in a little bit about the potential, but there's a market now to be able to sell stuff like this on Instagram without having to go on eBay, without having to go on Poshmark or any of those platforms.
Yeah. And so if you've got kids, save their stuff because 30 to 40 years from now, it'll be really valuable. Now, you might end up spending a ton of money on storage and lose all that profit. But just know some of those things will be valuable.
There you go. So, hey, nice flip. John, IG handle Vix, VIXX _vintage, selling those 4 shirts, $4 to $260.
Nice. And then our next one is great because not only is it a hustle of the week, but it comes with like a great tip, right? So Sherry, Instagram handle at 42 and Nooks, usually a seller of board games on eBay. Love that. And then clothes on Poshmark, but decided it was better to list on eBay. I think you threw that in there because you wanted to dish Poshmark a little bit.
I'm not. I just
knew that Splash Mountain at Disneyland was being turned into a Princess and the Frog. So went to a local thrift store and saw a Splash Mountain new with tag tee for $5.99 with the original Disney tag, sold to someone in her own state for $200. That's such a great deal. And I think the tip that comes from this is if you know something is changing, you know that this is a great example. The Splash Mountain is being rehauled, or maybe a team name is changing, or something big. There's a big change. And so the old stuff isn't going to be produced anymore. It's going to only be a new thing. And so instantly old stuff becomes very valuable because it's going to have that, well, when I was a kid or when I was younger, it was this, and you can't buy it anymore. Right now, you could go to Disneyland and buy, a Space Mountain or whatever thing that's like a Small World. You can buy that stuff. And a lot of those things are a dime a dozen. But if Small World were to change into something else and you can never buy Small World stuff at Disneyland again, all of a sudden the rarity goes up. So yeah, that's a great tip. If you know and you're just watching what's happening in culture and you see something change, you see maybe a company stops producing something, that might be the time to go pick up things if you can.
Yeah, and by the way, check out the Hustle of the Week hashtag so you can see these items, because that shirt's a pretty awesome shirt. I mean, all these items are legit, so check it out. Now, I had to throw in one more because this Instagrammer has been posting a lot and of unique stuff, right? It's good stuff that I don't think about. So I thought we'd throw in one more just because I thought it was pretty awesome. So Heather, IG handle Cosmic Deal Heather on Instagram, bought 4 lots of zero sugar Kool-Aid, 16 quarts for $7 at an expired food place. You ever been to one of those?
When I was a kid, there was an expired or nearly expired nutrition place that we would hit up all the time. And I think I told the story. My dad and I would sometimes go into their dumpster and pull out the stuff that they throw away because it was like incredible the amount of supplements they throw away that was like a month expired. But yeah, I've been to like day old bakeries, but not an expired food place.
Yeah. And so I'm like blown away by this because then she says they were best by February, what she sold. Okay. This sold in September. I mean, everybody has to risk a little bit here. Sold for a total, the lot of 4 paid $7, sold the lot for $71 free ship on eBay.
That's great.
And that's so wild.
So if there's discontinued things, it's probably because it was a discontinued item. Somebody can't get that one anymore, or it's out of stock everywhere. So a lot of things, you don't really care if it's expired. If, certain things, their expiration date is really, really, really conservative. Certain items you can look up online and they have how long after expiration date is something actually good. And certain items go quite a bit longer than their expiration date. And again, some people don't care. I used to watch Good Mythical Morning a lot, and I haven't watched it in probably a couple of years now. Good Mythical Morning?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh man, it's a great YouTube show.
Okay.
So it's 2 guys and they always do funny, silly things. And occasionally they would have episodes where they would test out certain things and they'd buy stuff off of eBay. And some of the things that they would test would be like expired foods. Like, what's the best cereal they need to
we
bring
need
back.
a podcast that we do that. Like we buy a random thing on eBay.
So they would buy like expired cereals that were like from, the 60s, 70s of like random, like, can you believe they used to sell this? And it's like a maybe slightly offensive or just like really cool and unique. And then they would like taste them. And a lot of times the stuff would be like really gross and disgusting because obviously they're really old and expired. But they would say like, which one of these does, General Mills need to bring back? So yeah, there are people who will buy really, really expired stuff sometimes just for fun. Maybe they want it for decoration.
Stay tuned. This is happening.
Oof.
This is gonna happen.
I don't know if I want to get like I don't want to die.
No, but we could.
I love you guys, but I'm not gonna die for you.
Hey, I've suggested doing the mukbang thing, and you're like, let's not do that. But I think this one we can get this we can make it reseller related. So, all right. Anyways, hey, thank you, Heather. Cosmic Duo, Heather. And by the way, I'm just checking her Instagram story. She just sold another pair of French's Buffalo Wings hot for $24.99, like those seasoning packets that you pay what, $2-3 for each. Like I'm just blown away. Like check out her Instagram page.
Yeah, but just think about it. If you've got mom's old recipe and it required a certain one, or it's like that taste, then Thanksgiving's coming up. I need that seasoning. If I try a different seasoning, it's not going to taste the same. You might be okay getting something that's
no, I get it. It's kind of like me. I've been trying to lose weight for 2 decades now, but I low carb like Atkins stuff, like it discontinues, and sometimes the only place you can get it is like on eBay. And I'm willing to have it be a little stale, but as long as it's what I enjoyed, I'm good with that. So anyways, all right, those were all awesome hustles of the week. So check them all out. All right, what's your hustle?
So my hustle, I mentioned it briefly in the last podcast, but and I'm probably saying this name wrong. I should have looked it up, but I was at a garage sale and it was actually a random stop. I was on my way to another garage sale, and as I'm driving, I saw like an arrow pointing, and I don't even think it said yard sale. It was just like a pink arrow, and I'm like, that's probably a yard sale. So I'm like, I'm gonna turn. So I turned, and sure enough, I saw another sign. It's like yard sale this way, and so I stop at this random yard sale, and I picked up a few things. And as I'm leaving, I see this box. And I found an advent calendar in the box, and I'm like, oh, advent calendars do pretty well this time of year. And then it's never been opened, and I didn't recognize the brand, but I looked it up, and this advent calendar, the specific one, sells for close to $100, right? $80-$90, something like that. And then I'm noticing there's lots of unopened toys from this brand. The brand is, I think it's Schleich. It's a German brand, and they make like horse, like girl toys, like horses and farm. They have like different, you can buy them in sets. Imagine, I don't even know what a comparison would be, but they're pretty cool.
Kind of like Breyer?
Maybe.
Like the horse toys?
Yeah, maybe. And so I picked up a whole bunch of these, and I bought the entire box for $5. Well,
Nice.
We started listing, and we've actually got them all listed now. And most of like the little ones that come with like a horse and a person and like a carrot and like a couple of fence pieces, they sell for like $29 each. And the advent calendar's about $80, but one of the pieces, and it's really weird, is the only one that was open, and it's almost like the box is inside out, and it was shipped to somebody. And I think I don't know if it was something somebody bought off of eBay or not, but going through the pieces, making sure they're all there, but new in an unopened box, this set goes for like $140. And this one's an open box, got the pieces, and the box is inside out. Like it's like they used it. And the way it looks, it doesn't look like somebody cut it open and flipped it inside out. It looks like the company sent it flipped inside out because it was like going through mail. But when you open it up, the inside has like all the pictures and stuff of what should be on the inside of that box. And so we listed it for a little bit less, but that box alone that I bought, I'm probably going to make $300 net profit or more. And I paid $5 for it. Yeah.
That's so legit.
So that's also kind of a bolo, right? The Schleich brand.
How do you spell that?
It's Schleich. So if you're a native German speaker or this brand.
We have one. You know who you are. Send us a voicemail.
Yeah. Let us know if I'm saying that wrong. But it's not a brand that sells a lot in America. When we're listing them, we see that most of the sales are coming from Australia or from Europe or from Germany. And so I think I've got a little bit of an advantage because I'm selling a product that's usually coming overseas, but I'm selling it domestically. So and a lot of them do come to America. So if I can reach that American audience and they're not paying $20 to $30 in shipping, but it's $5 to $10 in shipping, I might be the one that they're going to. So if you can find, maybe that's just another tip for you. If you can find stuff that usually sells from overseas, and again, this isn't going to be something you can just go out and get all the time, but if you see it and you see that they usually ship from Australia or Europe, but they do come to America, you're going to have the advantage at least on shipping. So maybe you can even charge a little more.
That is nice. Sorry, I found something for us to eat. So there's some Frosted Cheerios expired 1995. Let's do it.
No, that's not. It's got to be, if we're going to do it, it has to be like a discontinued brand.
That's 25 years.
I don't want to just eat old. It's got to be like a one that they came out with for only like a week, like a limited edition, like a sports player or something like that.
Okay, stay tuned. We're gonna do this because we could do this. So hey, hit that bell notification to be notified. And I think we're gonna make an episode like this. I think it'll be fun. It'll be simple to make, right? It'll be fun.
And we might end up in the hospital, with food poisoning, but it is what it is.
I mean, look, there's Twinkies from what? Oh, that's not too. Okay, anyways, all right. Congratulations, Michael, on your hustle week.
Thank you.
All right. So mine is directly related to what we've just been talking about. Networking. And I already shared, I think, a hustle of the week of a Harley haul that I had like a few weeks ago from somebody that follows us on social media. They're a local reseller. And they don't sell Harley, but they know I do. And they hit me up and it worked out. Same scenario. So shout out Mike, vintage.games.plus. I don't know how many times we shouted this guy out on the podcast, but he sells awesome video games and electronics and all kinds of other goods on his Instagram page. And we'll talk about that a little bit too later on, because that's the potential of Instagram and social media. So he DMs me, and I shared this in the Insta story, but I'm going to give you a little bit of the behind the scenes. So, it's Friday, and I need to get back into the pattern of going to garage sales on Fridays. I just haven't because, you get busy with life and school and COVID like destroyed everything. Like there used to be so many garage sales on Fridays, and then I was just grateful when they have them on Saturdays again. So it's Saturday morning. It's a heinous morning, like trying to get my kids to school, get breakfast made, like all this craziness is going on, trying to get shipments out. So he DM'd me at 5:40 in the morning. I didn't see the DM until 10:30. And it's like, he sends me an ad about this huge, Harley sale that's going on. It wasn't just Harley, but it looked like it was a big deal. And here's the thing. It's because of Pure Hustle Podcast that we know Mike, right? Vintage.games.plus. Because, right, he follows us on Instagram, and then he noticed you, right, at a garage sale, like, was it over a year ago now, right? And you've seen it on a couple. I've never met him, actually. Mike, I need to take you to lunch sometime, man. Hit me up. And so he messages because he likes to sell electronics, right? And so I'm hoping I can return the favor one day. And he says, hey, this could be good for you. I'm like, hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it. And he's like, hey, man, you guys provide value for us on a daily basis. No problem. And so I'm like, sweet. Now it's 10:30. I'm like, oh, man, what did I had this terrible feeling. Like, do I want to go? Because if I go and there's nothing there, I'm just going to feel terrible, like terrible. So I go, literally, Mike, 9 minutes from my house. 9 minutes. Like that trailer park area, if you go down the freeway, right? It was in that region. So you guys are like, we're going to find the location of the bunker. And so I drive down there and I show up. I tell myself, I share this on the Instagram story, never ask like, hey, what did I miss out on? Because you're just asking for pain, right? Well, don't ask it. I did it anyways. I said, hey, they're like, oh, there was all kinds of stuff, blah, blah, blah. But then I felt a little bit better when I started sorting through the stuff. So there was a lot of Harley stuff that was there. As I'm sorting through it, there's some stuff that's really expensive. Like a leather jacket for $100, a pair of boots for $100, which there are some Harley boots that are worth like about $100. But generally when they're secondary, like already being used, there's not many Harley boots that you can sell for over $100. And so I'm like, okay, maybe a lot of the good stuff wasn't sold. Maybe in their mind, they thought they sold a lot of stuff, but maybe it wasn't a lot of good stuff. And we'll share on our update episode how Mike ended up picking up some good stuff because he got there before me. Then stay tuned for that episode. And so I'm going through the stuff, and it was still nice. I picked up probably, I'm trying to do the math in my head, probably 18 pieces of apparel, Harley apparel. So all from like button-down Harley shirts to T-shirts to leather vests. I also picked up some signage, some Harley signage. Then I picked up some random stuff like coaster sets. And there's a few other, random things there. And, I go to, make the deal, and I can't tell you how awesome silence is when you're trying to make a deal. Like we've talked about this before, like never give the first number. So I'm like, how much would you want for all of this? In my head, I'm like, she's going to go big because I'm looking at the other prices, $100 here, $100 here. She goes, how about 135 for everything? And in my mind, I'm like, what? Like, this is already a good deal, right? But, we're resellers, try to get a better deal. So I said, my new line now has been, is there any room for you on that price? It's weird. People actually will go, you know what? Yeah, I can give you this. It's so weird. That's been my new line. Like, are you willing to move on that at all? So then she went down to 125. And I'm like, I was thinking more like a flat 100. And then she goes, you know what? How about 110? What? Like, we dropped $25 and it didn't take much effort. So yeah, I picked up everything for 110. All I have to sell is that Harley leather vest, and I'm getting everything else is going to be profit. Or sell 2 or 3 of those shirts, everything else is going to be profit. Or sell some of the signage and all the clothing will be profit. So why was I able to have that haul? It's because Mike from vintage.games.plus on Instagram hit me up. It's because of the network that was created as a result of social media. So I think it lands perfectly with our episode.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the potential. Right?
Potential.
So do you think you've improved your business because of social media?
Yeah. And actually, I probably would improve it a lot more if I was more actively engaged. Hobbies that I'm interested in, I'm more likely to follow social media for. My wife is actually a little bit better on reselling social media. She'll tell me like, hey, I follow so-and-so and they just posted this. We should look out for that. I don't know what it is. Like reselling to me is a fun hobby, but it's not, it's also a business. And so I spend the amount of time I need to spend in reselling to make the money that I want to make from it. And I don't really have as much interest in like, I want to maximize everything. I'm going to spend hours because I know if I spend a little bit more time watching YouTube videos, following certain people, looking at this stuff, that I'd probably be making 3-4 times what I'm making right now. But I don't know what it is why I haven't done that for reselling, but absolutely what I have been involved in, the interactions I get through Pure Hustle Podcast and, occasionally jumping on the Pure Hustle Podcast Instagram and reading through things. I'd probably say at least 40% of what I know about reselling has just come from seeing other people tell me stuff and learning from them. So yeah, absolutely. I've improved a ton from social media. And the crazy thing is, like I said, there's so much more potential. I don't know what's keeping me from tapping into it. I don't know if I want it. I think it might turn into more of a job if I, go that serious.
Understood. Because right when you're side hustle, you're only going to do so much, right? So for me, it's all the time, right? This is who I am. This is why I'm always on Instagram and TikTok and all that good stuff. But there's so much to learn to improve your business. Like whether it's from organizing your inventory, whether it's how, to make deals, what products to keep an eye out for, whether it's just networking like we've discussed before. There is so much potential. I mean, we get DMs all the time, like, how do I start reselling? And yeah, we tell them, we divert them to episodes 120, parts 1 and 2 about, top 10 ways to start eBay and stuff like that. But it's just watching YouTube. Like even myself, there's a bunch of influencers that I still watch because even though like I may have been a reseller longer than some of them, sometimes it's good to hear ideas from people that have only been in the game for like 2 years because they may have picked up on something I never thought about, right? Or sometimes I still go to the tried and true, like Craigslist Hunter. I still learn from Craigslist Hunter, right? There's a bunch of individuals that Ronnie Hart, like we need to have Hearts Pickers on here sometimes, but sometime soon. But he sells a lot of men's clothing. Even during this pandemic, he's still making money on men's clothing like suits, right? Which everything you hear is like, oh, the suit market's dead. Nobody's going and getting dressed up for work, but there's people buying still, right? Doesn't mean everyone. So there is so much potential. Like you can learn a whole new niche within a week if you're like, hey, I just want to learn this one niche. Like you find a reseller that's good at that, or you just, follow them on Instagram or on TikTok, whatever. You can learn so much. So there's a ton of potential. The next thing is you'll be the first to learn about a lot of things, right? A lot of things that are trending, right? So I'll give you an example. Like, had I listened to Gary Vee like a year and a half ago about basketball cards and actually like gone all in on a lot of cards, I'd have thousands of dollars in my bank account right now. Thousands, right? Because you think about it, Gary Vee only has, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay his following, but he has less than 10 million on Instagram, right? He's not huge, right? Same thing on YouTube.
10 million sounds pretty huge.
Yeah, but when you think about like the influencers, like the 50 million, the 100 million, the 250 million. I mean, Gary Vee, I'll put it. I'm not.
Are there anybody in the same kind of lane as Gary Vee?
No.
So then he's the big fish in his pond.
He's a big fish in the reselling pond. Like, if you want to, I mean, some people are gonna, take offense to that, but he talks a lot about reselling. He has 8.5 million, right? But man, if there's a lot of people that took that advice and they've made thousands of dollars, or millions even. Pokemon, same thing, right? When you're looking at trends in clothing, like for example, there's some resellers that are like, hey, they'll go through the fashion magazines and they'll share like, hey, these are some keywords that you should be throwing in your listings now, and people are converting and making those sales. If I was on social media, I would just been doing the same old tried and true keywords, and maybe I'm losing out on those sales because I didn't know that this was the keyword now to be using in my listings, right? So there's so much to be the first. I mean, for example, throw one more, retail arbitrage, right? Maybe not necessarily, the bolos that end up dead because they're exposed, but knowing that, hey, at this point in time, this console is really selling hot, right? And so like Wii's during COVID, like I didn't know that Wii's were hot. The only reason I knew that Wii's were hot was because social media, right? If I wasn't on social media, I probably would have had Wii consoles probably listed super cheap and they would have sold right away. I wouldn't have known that I could have doubled or tripled my money on those Wii consoles if it wasn't for people on Instagram saying, hey, Wii's are selling really well right now, especially certain Wii's are selling really well. So
good. All
right, now this is the one that I think is controversial, but I think it's a must. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much about it, but using social media as a selling platform.
I think it's interesting. I don't know if I'd say it's a must though.
I think we're getting there. And this is what's going on. So what I'm seeing now as a result of COVID is that, a lot of people, we all do eBay, right? I mean, but most of us do eBay, right? We do Amazon, we do Poshmark, but people had more time on their hands on COVID, right? And people are more on social media and they're trying to interact. And so some people have been doing this for a long time. I'm not saying this is new, but a lot of people have come up now. And, we talked about the guy that sold the Aladdin shirt for like $6,000 and so on. But now there's a lot of auctions taking place on Instagram, right? So people have a haul or have a bunch of shirts. They're going to say, hey, at this time, I'm going to sell these items. And, people show up and they're selling. This last garage sale that we went to, remember the person that got there right after you and bought a whole bunch of their stuff, at the garage sale?
Actually, I think they were there right before me.
Right before you? Yeah. Dude, I think she sold out on all that stuff already on Instagram. Wow. Right? So, because, she followed us and we followed her and I'm going to, and I don't know if she wanted a shout out, so I didn't want to throw out her name, but you know who you are. If you want to, let us know and have you give you a shout out. We'll do it if you catch our podcast. But I'm looking on there and I'm like, she didn't list this on eBay. She didn't list this on Poshmark. The next day, because we're following, right? And so it started coming up on the feed. I'm like, hey, I saw that at the garage sale. I saw that and I saw that and I saw that, and probably went through about 30 items sold in 2 days.
Wow.
Not top dollar, not low dollar, kind of the medium, but no fees and quick. And I'm like, am I missing out on something? Right? Because, I'll get up every once in a while. This last time I sold a Snoopy waffle maker that Resell Kel. I want to make sure I got her name right. She saw the Snoopy waffle maker and she's like, oh, that would be really cool to have. And I'm like, she's like, are you willing to sell it? And I'm sure. Like, we haven't done this on our podcast yet or on our
the one you broke.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that right now too. So Resell Kel on Instagram. That's with the K. she wanted this Snoopy waffle maker, and it was real simple. I'm like, sure, no problem. And so she's like, hey, can I Venmo you? Can I PayPal? Now, people have different ways of doing this, right? You got to be careful. If you want to have seller protections, like on PayPal, make sure you send an invoice and you make it a merchant sale. If you trust a person and it's, no big deal, you could do it through friends and family and you don't have to take any fees. You can do it on Venmo. But if you don't do it as a merchant and you send that money's gone. You can never get that money back. Or if you send something and the person, for a reason tries to fight against it, there's only so much you can do, right? So she Venmoed me the $42. I paid $6 for it. Instant sale, right? I sold it to her for cheaper than what I would have sold on eBay, but I'm like, hey, no fees, quick sale, why not? Unfortunately, I used pirate ship and I tried to do kind of a modified box in the bag without a box. And I bubble wrapped it. I thought I bubble wrapped it well. I used some other packing material that people use for dishes. It was good. I'm telling you, a car must have ran over this thing. Like, I don't even know. So she gets it. I'm like, this isn't good for us right now. So she's like, oh no. And she actually didn't want to share it on social media. I'm like, yeah, share it. We'll make a story about it. It's all good. I can share it with people how to do an insurance claim. Because in the end, it's going to be a win, right? I mean, not for her, unless, I'm able to find another one. But, I filed an insurance claim and I was able to refund her money right away. And the post office will give me back my money right away. And I'll be good. But here's the thing. I've had so many sales on Instagram because of me just simply sharing in stories or sharing a post of a haul, right? And so I encourage you guys, like if a lot of you, reach out to me and they're like, hey, what should I do with my Instagram? Like, how do I grow my Instagram? How do I develop a store? And here's what I see. I see some people, I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody. I see some people that they just start an Instagram and all they do is they post all their products, but there's no following. So you're not going to sell. But if you're sharing the stories of how you got these items or you're providing value and you begin to develop a following, like you're going to have people that are going to want to buy that inventory. And who knows? I've shared this with Mike that maybe one day, when we get to a certain point, maybe we'll go after a garage sale or say, hey, if any of you are interested, we're going to do a live auction later on today. And here are the items. And, we'll just auction them off after the podcast, after the haul and the Instagram story. And, we'll do it that way, right? Because it's a great way to sell. Now, I have heard, people say, well, there's, these people that are on YouTube aren't real resellers because, they're selling all their stuff to the people that watch their YouTube. But I'm like, well, no, that's what reselling's about. Like you're selling.
Yep. You're finding a buyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Like Rally Roots, like they're big into the vintage shirt stuff now and they're killing it doing that, right? Harry Tornado, before he got Veroed, and I'm glad he got his store back. He had, many of you that listen to us, listen and watch Harry Tornado, Josh's YouTube channel. He had 47 sales, right? All from people that watch. Now, you're always welcome to buy 47 items from us anytime you want, even though we don't share our store publicly. But if you want. But what I'm saying is like, hey, if you grow your YouTube to a certain following or your social media, that's another avenue that you can maximize profits with that avenue.
Yeah. And then another example too, we talked about Facebook groups. There's a Facebook group for basically everything. And so if you find a lot of, let's say you find a lot of like pet stuff, right? And it's like a bunch of dog costumes and you end up getting into a couple of dog groups and you bought a whole bunch of it in bulk. And maybe you interact with a couple people and you say like, hey, everybody. And a lot of these Facebook groups don't want you to sell through, but some of them are totally okay with that. They sell things.
Make sure you look at the rules.
But even still, you might say like, hey guys, I got this whole lot of stuff. Like any ideas what I should do with it? And you might get some people reach out to you and say like, hey, I'll buy some of that. And you can work through that. I know people who do vintage audio and they sell almost everything through the forums that they're a part of, right? Or the Facebook groups they're a part of, and they don't do anything on eBay. So there are definitely ways to utilize social media for selling. Even if you don't necessarily have a big following, you don't have the Instagram, you don't have the YouTube, join a Facebook group, be a part of it, be active, especially if you're really into vintage 90s clothes, get into a couple of Facebook groups that are into that stuff and, participate, learn through it and show that you're a valuable member to that community and post your stuff. And you'd be surprised at how many people will buy it.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I think about Elijah from McCloskey Elijah on Instagram. Like, he was one of the top contenders for the eBay prize at the last eBay Open. And we'll eventually have you on the podcast. We've been late. Our schedules have been crazy. But I remember when I picked up a Pendleton blanket, right? He was telling me that there's groups that like love Pendleton blankets. And so if I had just found a group, I probably would have sold it faster there, right? So now I sold it on eBay still. But again, social media, like I do think I don't think it's going to be Facebook shops. Like, what happened to Facebook shops?
I don't know.
I don't know. We're going to take this clip and show how Orlando's wrong in 10 years. But I really think the reason that Facebook shops hasn't taken off is because the tools are already there, right? It's not that hard on Instagram to sell. Like, you just post something, somebody wants it. They, wire you the money. You can use pirate ship. You create a label, you send it, you're done, right? Pretty easy. So much potential. And maybe in the future, Mike and I might be doing that in the future because, hey, if people want an item, who am I to hold back from somebody, buying it?
That's right. We want to get you the products you want.
There you go. But we didn't build a channel for that reason. So it's just a side thing.
Yeah.
So it works. Anyways, hopefully you found this podcast helpful. Be on social media. Obviously, there's a good and bad, but there's, I think, so much more good. And with that being said, hey, make sure to be real.
Be relevant.
And be reselling. Peace.